The wind is not howling. It barely sighs, as if it too has grown tired of the long dampness of early spring. You hear it trace across the moss-covered stone, brushing the edge of a tiny ancient window. There is no glass, there never was, but the air curls softly into the dark interior where you sit. Well, you don't sit so much as you exist here, in this low-ceilinged stone cell built by hands long vanished. It smells faintly of salt and sheep, earth and cold candle wax. Outside, the sea sulks in its usual gray, and inland the bog moans occasionally like it also has complaints, but won't trouble you with the details just yet. Welcome to the western edge of Ireland. It is somewhere around the year 830, give or take a plague or two. You are a monk, probably, or something like a monk. You wear a coarse robe that never fully dries. Your diet is mainly root vegetables with occasional dried fish, and your daily joy involves avoiding Viking raids and reminding yourself not to speak. Oh, and yes, there's a duck in the room. She waddles by, ignoring you completely. She's a regular here. Don't worry, she's not judging your spiritual inadequacy. In fact, she's part of the reason you're here. Or rather, why you're still here. Welcome to one of the quieter chapters of human history, early medieval. Monastic life on the misty fringes of Europe, where ducks were sometimes part of the daily liturgy. You probably won't make it through this day, but that's okay. That's sort of the point. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe, not because the ancient monks demanded it, but because you deserve more sleepy, odd history in your life. And if you'd be so kind, comment your location and the local time. Somewhere out there, a fellow listener is falling asleep to the same slow unraveling of dusty time. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. Your feet touch the uneven stone floor of the monastery's cloister. It's cold, not biting cold, more like an indifferent cold. The kind that says, you didn't ask me to be here, but I came anyway. There's no fireplace. There's no fire. The closest thing to warmth is Brother Murkerdik's onion, breath wafting faintly from the cell next door. You shuffle along the narrow corridor, the thick stone walls pressing in like a hunched grandmother. Light drips in through tiny windows, staining the air gold and green. In the distance, someone coughs. Or chants. It's hard to tell which. Both sound like a man slowly turning into dust. Here in this remote abbey, somewhere near the River Shannon. But really more of an idea than a pinpoint on a map, you begin your daily routine. Which is to say, you survive another 24 hours of praying, copying manuscripts, and not getting murdered by Norsemen. Historical fact. By the early 9th century, Irish monasteries were among the most literate and scholarly centers in Western Europe. Despite the general collapse of Roman infrastructure elsewhere, these damp little outposts kept Latin texts alive. Not bad for a culture where your best pen might still be a sharpened goose feather. The duck snorts at that. Yes, she's still here, nestled now in a corner of the scriptorium, where monks copy psalms by candlelight and pretend not to see the feathers. You were told the duck is part of a devotional practice. She reminds you to observe silence, to move gently, to tend to the tuntive, living world. Of course, it's also possible the duck just wandered in one day and refused to leave. Historians still debate whether monks deliberately brought ducks indoors, or whether ducks simply had strong opinions on indoor plumbing. A bell rings outside. Well, not quite a bell. More like a handheld iron clapper banged by a novice who looks consistently like he's on the brink of tears. Time for tierce mid-morning prayer. You kneel beside the others in the chapel. Cold knees, splinters in your palms. There's a gentle rhythm to the murmured Latin, though you don't understand most of it. No one really does. Even the abbot seems a little fuzzy on the finer points of theology, but the cadence is what matters. The repetition. The sound of time folding softly inward. Cultural tidbit. It was common in Irish monastic communities too. Assign animals symbolic roles. Cows might represent earthly sustenance, bees divine labor. Ducks, though not always canonically approved, seemed to slip into a special niche. Some say they were seen as mediators between water and land, a waddling metaphor for balance. Or maybe they were just funny mid-prayer. You notice the duck has wandered in again. She stands solemnly near the altar, head cocked, watching the abbot, with what can only be described as judgmental neutrality. No one moves her. She's earned the right. Outside, the clouds consider raining again. Inside, you return to your cell for a brief moment of solitary reflection. The walls smell of damp wool and old parchment. There's a crack in the far corner, where ivy keeps trying to reclaim its ancestral rights. You sit on your straw mat and stare out the window. It's not a great view, just a gray sky and the top of another monk's head as he tends the herb garden. But there's something peaceful in it. The same way it's peaceful to watch paint dry, if the paint is sacred and drying is a metaphor for the slow passage of mortal life. Your stomach growls. Lunch is still hours away, but you try not to think about it. You meditate. You contemplate. You recite half-remembered lines of the Psalms. Eventually, your thoughts drift. You wonder who first decided prayer and ducks were compatible. You wonder whether the duck has a name. You wonder if she thinks of you as a monk or just an unusually quiet furniture item. You blink slowly. The candle flickers outside, the sea. Sighs inside, nothing happens. Perfectly and so the day begins. You find yourself inexplicably back in the garden. To be clear, it's not a garden in the modern sense. No tulips, no patio furniture, and absolutely no gnomes. This garden is a rectangle of stubborn soil bordered by low stones, half-grown cabbages, and what may once have been leeks. It smells like wet clay and self-denial. You are holding a trowel. Or maybe it's a stick. It does the job either way. The novice beside you is talking again. He's not supposed to, but rules bend when your job is manually evicting slugs from St. Bridget's vegetables. He's telling you about a dream he had. Something about a glowing fish that spoke Latin. You nod solemnly. You've had worse conversations. One involved a monk who swore his reflection was trying to confess sins he hadn't committed. The duck is also here. She is sitting directly in the middle of the herb patch, daring anyone to move her. No one does. You pretend she's guarding the time. It gives her purpose. It gives you a reason to stand here in the drizzle and not think about the time you dropped an entire inkpot on a page of the Gospel of Luke. Historical fact. Many Irish monks practiced green martyrdom, a term that referred to leaving behind society to live a life of harsh asceticism in the wilderness, often in total isolation. If red martyrdom was dying for the faith, green martyrdom was quietly composting for it. You glance across the small cloister yard, where Brother Donald is trying to coax an early bloomer from a rosemary shrub by reciting poetry to it. This seems excessive. But then again, this is a man who once fasted for 7 days to rid himself of a dream involving cheese. There's a gentle absurdity to it all. The rhythms of monastic life aren't about efficiency. They're about repetition. Like a lullaby sung to the earth, every day begins the same way, with silence, prayer, some form of root vegetable, and a vague existential ache that maybe, just maybe, you were supposed to be a fisherman instead. The duck waddles past, stops, and stares at you. You have no idea what she wants. No one ever does. Some say she used to belong to the bishop. Some say she's a reincarnated saint. Some say she's just a duck. Historians still debate whether monastic records intentionally included animals in their inventories or whether scribes simply got bored and creative. You return to your manuscript work after lunch. The transition from root pulling to Latin calligraphy is jarring, like switching from digging a ditch to transcribing Beethoven using a toothpick. Your hands are stained from beetroot. Your eyes are still adjusting to the flickering candlelight. You sit at the long wooden desk, quill in hand. The page before you is stretched vellum, likely from a sheep whose name you are trying not to think about. Ink pot to the side. Elbow already sore. Here comes 4 hours of perfect pen strokes and total spinal collapse. Cultural tidbit. The margins of Irish manuscripts were often filled with tiny doodles, idle poems, or notes like "cold today" and "I am very tired." These scribes weren't just holy men, they were also, essentially, the first bloggers. You try not to add your own commentary, but your hand slips slightly on a line from the Psalms. The Latin now reads something closer to "The Lord is my lamp, and my ... lamp is also a goose." You quietly blot it out and move on. Maybe no one will notice. Maybe it's theological. The duck enters the room again. She seems to favor the scriptorium in the afternoon. Maybe it's the smell of ink. Maybe she just enjoys watching humans ruin their posture in real time. She settles beside your foot. You breathe. Another bell rings. Time for the mid-afternoon prayer. You rise, joints clicking like someone dropped a sack of spoons. You shuffle down the corridor, past the dripping walls and half-mended tapestries. Remember that street you walked past earlier? It's back, but now it's indoors, made of stone, and smells faintly of ancient rain. You kneel again. This time, your knees complain louder that the prayer begins. The duck, for once, does not follow. You envy her freedom.